Hey there everyone, where we're starting this video is at the Quick Start gas station in Cedar Rapids. So it's been a couple days since I've been able to work on the 82 GT, mainly just trying to get the engine bay finished up. You guys haven't seen that yet, that'll be coming up in an upcoming video. What we did today is we went and picked up a parts car for the 5-lug stuff. I ended up picking up a 97 V6 Mustang. Basically we'll use all the front suspension stuff from it. We'll use the rear axles and brakes from this car as well. That stuff should all work on the 7.5. I'll explain that a little bit later on, how that works when you swap drums to discs and the parts you need to have to do that. But there she is back there. Originally a T5 car, I ended up picking up a T5 with this car. That's what this kid bought the car for. He had a 94 or 5 GT that he needed the transmission from. And T5s are basically the same for the SN95s. I don't really care what you say about it. So right now we're gonna head back home. We're going back to Dubuque, so it's gonna be like an hour 15-minute drive, and then we'll get the old girl unloaded, and then we'll go from there. So just figured we start the video off here. And all right guys, we just got back from Cedar Rapids, got the car unloaded. Sorry, it's covered in snow. Just got a huge snowstorm. Pulled it with the old Saucy Girl, regular cab short box, Coyote powered truck. Just dollied it back. Just was going to Cedar Rapids, wasn't too far away. A lot of good parts on this car, a lot of bad parts. Obviously, since the windows have been blown out of it, don't have a lot of, like the seats probably won't be very good. No tears or anything from what I can tell, but both bags went off, but the dash is in pretty good shape still. Door panels are still good. Charcoal dash, so that's pretty nice. I might end up using that in the Fox body if I ever do the SN95 dash swap. Mainly what we're after was the brakes, so it's worth getting it just for the brake parts. Sell most of the other stuff off of it that I don't need. Alright everyone, got the 82 GT back in the shop, got it up on some jack stands. I bet you're asking yourself how we got to this position, and honestly I'm kind of asking myself that right now. So I didn't really get to film a whole lot of this because my GoPro, basically the SD card that I had for it, wouldn't read any files. So all the film that I did have on this stuff basically got lost. We got the harnesses out of the engine bay, got it stripped down. I started cleaning it. There really wasn't a whole lot of good paint left. The paint that was there was really faded, and it was showing mostly primer through, and I just didn't really like it. So I figured, we're already this far into it, let's just drop the K-member out of it and just rebuild everything. Because like I said, the theme is we're redoing everything so I don't have to do this later on. So we kind of shaved the engine bay a little bit, just shaved what we weren't going to use, still kept the snorkel holes because I like the way the snorkels look. Did fill the frame rails in, so these are flat now. Filled all these holes in, the battery's going to be in the back now. Basically filled everything else in, welded all the holes shut, the little pinholes like on the shock towers. You'll notice those are all gone now, besides the ones that we still need for the clutch cable and everything. We already painted this once, as you can tell. I just wasn't really a fan of how it came out. I thought I blew most of the dirt out of the frame rails, but I didn't. Down in here there was some schmutz. They were, as you might guess, they were filled with mouse poop, whatever you want to call it. So it basically just got a bunch of dirt in the paint. So I wet sanded it down, scuffed it up, and we're gonna shoot it one more time. It only took like 8 ounces of paint to get 2 coats on the engine bay. So I won't set a time lapse up for the spraying of the paint because I don't have a way to protect the camera, and I don't really have a way to manage the overspray. It's winter. I think it's -5 degrees outside without the wind chill right now in Iowa. So I can't have the fan going that we have on the ceiling to exhaust all the fumes. So we're just gonna do it the old fashioned way. So next what we're gonna do, we're gonna get the engine bay sprayed. I got the K-member somewhat restored. I have a parts car sitting outside, which you may have already seen by now. We're gonna use all the suspension stuff from that car because this car did have 120,000 miles. Control arms are actually in really good shape. I'll probably end up reusing the lower bushings on those. We will do new ball joints because we have SN95 spindles now. And I'll talk more about that when we get all the suspension stuff and what needs to change for that to get the SN95 stuff to work with the Fox body. because an SN95 is still a Fox body for those of you that don't know. As you can see, I still got a roll of tape sitting down there I'll have to grab before I start spraying. I got the floor wet just so it doesn't kick up any dust into the paint job. Yeah, so we're just gonna get it sprayed and then we'll take it from there. We're just gonna be using Nason products. It's the cheapest. And we're not really going for show car quality here. For those of you that know paint, know Nason's not really an expensive paint, not super high quality, but it'll do the job. Got the old Harbor Freight gun sitting there, not the cheap one, so don't freak out. So we're gonna get it mixed up. It mixes 8 to 1 to 2, I think. So basically 8 ounces of paint, 1 ounce of the catalyst, and 2 ounces of the reducer. If you don't use the catalyst, the activator is what they call it. If you don't use the activator, the paint won't set up. I found that out the hard way on the King Cobra. Sprayed the engine bay we did before we moved here, and the paint never dried. It was still tacky, so that was a lot of hours with paint stripper and a power washer to get all that off, because you can't sand it because it's still goo. So take it from me, you do need to use that. All right, guys, here we are back again. Got the engine bay painted up. It actually came out pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with it. Got a couple dirt nibs in it. Not going to be perfect. The problem is this car should have been washed really well before it was taken apart. You can only get it so clean when it's sitting on a trailer, and it's got 30 years of dirt sitting in every crevice. So there's bound to be some dirt blowout, which is fine. I can wet sand and buff it, but it's in the engine bay. Most of the stuff's going to be covered back up, so I'm not really that worried about it. It did come out pretty nice though. We might end up painting part of the air dam, because the air dam was, it's got spider cracks in it. Nothing serious, but stuff that I'd like to get fixed. We're gonna end up doing the headlight bezels and grille black like a Cobra or a pace car. I just like the way that looks. We also got a Cobra hood scoop. You can tell it's from a Cobra because you can still see the outline of the snake, kind of. Here's the hood for the Cobra. The dealio's coming off the side of it. I got the prop rod painted. That's probably not going to be on there for long, just until I can get some hood struts. Got the hood hinges and bolts painted along with the prop rod mount, whatever you want to call that. Next thing we're going to end up doing is putting the harness in. I'm going to tuck the harness under the fender so it's not going to run through the engine bay anymore, just for a clean tucked look. We'll bring it through the hole where it goes through right there, through here. Probably have to enlarge that hole a little bit. Zip tie it to the underside of the aprons here, and then run it to the headlights and wherever it's got to go. The harness that runs through this side, I'm gonna run back through the dash since I have the dash out. Basically run that harness through that hole as well, and then run it through the radiator support so it's not just hanging out over here. Gonna mount the solenoid up further along with the voltage regulator if I have one. It probably won't have one. From that parts car, that it's got a 3.8, not a 5 liter, which kind of sucks, but the parts that I'm going to use are the same. So the starter will still work for a small block, and then the alternator will also work for a small block. So it should be internally regulated, just 3 wires, the ground, 12 volt battery, and then switch 12 volt, which was going to the alternator anyways. Then we will, well, actually I got a list, because you got to make a list whenever you're doing something. So what we end up calling this old girl is Gertrude. Everybody likes naming stuff, so I'm not really crazy about it. My dad's like, well, you got to give it a name. So we're going to call her Gertie or Gertrude, because GT, Gertrude. I got to do the engine bay harness, mount the components like the ignition box and stuff, mount battery in the trunk, run the cables up front, mount the K-member, do this front suspension stuff, get the dash done. Before I put the front clip on, we're going to do the door bushings, because the driver's door doesn't close very well, and it's because the top bushings wore out. Luckily, it hasn't worn the bushing away, so I don't need to replace the hinge. So we'll just get away with putting a bushing in it. So that should work out pretty solid. With that parts car, I also picked up a T5. If I had a dime for every T5 that I had third gear go out of, I could probably buy a TKO. This one something along the lines of third gear. It got stuck in third gear and wouldn't come back out, and then when it came back out, it wouldn't go back in. I also have another T5 part for parts that I'm picking up. This was probably 20 years ago. It came from a friend of mine. And then I have another T5 that I'm going to pick up for parts too. So hopefully out of all of them, I can make one good one. That'd be nice. Got a lot of parts on the way. That's why I really haven't been able to make a whole lot of videos. Got the die coming for the dash from LMR. Got a new flywheel coming because I didn't want to pay to get the flywheel machined. Got stuff to end up putting the motor back together. Got a one-piece pan gasket. We'll get that cleaned up and painted. We'll put the engine in before the front clip goes back on, just because for anybody who has an 4i car that has the air dam on it, or that grill, I suppose, the cherry picker wants to hit the front of the car before it wants to get the motor in where it sits. So it's going to be a lot easier to just put the engine in before the front clip's back on, get the front clip back on. Mainly just making progress when I have more parts. Most of that stuff will be here tomorrow or probably next week, early sometime. So I think that's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. Going to keep this one short. Got a lot done, but also not a lot done. The further I go into this, the further it comes apart and the more time it's going to take to put it back together. But as you can see outside, not like I'm going to be able to drive it anytime soon, so it's not like it really matters. I'd love to be working on like King Cobra, but this one's going to be done sooner, so we're going to get this one done first. This one's also going to take a lot less money, so we're going to get this one done. But that's going to be it for this video, you guys. Y'all take care now.